Hello there. Welcome to our special video today. I'm so happy you joined me. Today we're going to talk about something really amazing and a little bit mysterious. We're going to ask a big question: do robots have feelings? Exploring the wonders of artificial intelligence with kids. Have you ever talked to Siri or Alexa? Or maybe you've played with a robot toy that can answer your questions? Perhaps you've seen videos of robots that can run, jump, dance, or even do backflips. These are all examples of artificial intelligence, or AI for short. AI is like teaching computers and robots to do things that normally only humans can do, like talking, answering questions, recognizing faces, or even drawing pictures. But here's the really interesting question: when a robot says, "I'm happy to help you," or "I don't know that," does it really feel happy? Does it really not know? Does it have feelings like we do? Does it feel excited when it succeeds or disappointed when it fails? These are big questions that even the smartest adults in the world don't fully agree on. Let's start with something simple that you might relate to. Think about your favorite teddy bear or doll. When you were very little, you might have thought your teddy bear had feelings. Maybe you felt bad if your teddy fell on the floor, or you made sure it was comfortable in bed with you. Maybe you even talked to your teddy bear and imagined it talking back to you. That's completely normal. Many children imagine their toys have feelings and thoughts. But of course, as we grow up, we learn that teddy bears don't really have feelings. They don't get sad if they fall, or happy when you hug them. They don't feel cold in winter or hot in summer. They're just soft, cuddly toys made of fabric and stuffing. Even though we might pretend they have feelings, we know deep down that they don't. Now, what about robots? They're definitely more complicated than teddy bears, aren't they? Some robots can talk to us, recognize our faces, remember our names and preferences, and even learn new things. Some robots can play games with us and even beat us at difficult games like chess. But does that mean they have feelings? Does a robot chess player feel proud when it wins or sad when it loses? When I ask Alexa how she's feeling, she might say, "I'm fine, thank you for asking." But is Alexa really feeling fine? Or is she just programmed to say that? If I tell Alexa, "I'm sad today," she might say, "I'm sorry to hear that. I hope your day gets better." But does Alexa really feel sorry? Does she really hope I feel better? Or is she just saying words that her programmers told her to say? Scientists and engineers, the people who create robots and AI, have programmed them to say certain things when they hear certain questions or statements. It's like a very, very complicated game of Simon Says. If I say, "How are you?" the AI is programmed to respond with something like, "I'm good, how are you?" If I say, "I'm feeling sad," the AI is programmed to respond with something sympathetic. But the AI doesn't actually feel good or bad or sympathetic. It doesn't feel anything at all. Think about it this way: if I write the words "I am happy" on a piece of paper, does the paper feel happy? Of course not. The paper is just showing the words I wrote. In a similar way, when a robot says "I am happy," it's just showing the words it was programmed to say. The robot doesn't feel happy any more than the paper does. Another way to think about it is to imagine a parrot that can say, "I'm happy." A parrot can learn to say those words, but it doesn't understand what happiness is in the same way we do. It's just repeating sounds it has heard. In some ways, current AI is like a super advanced parrot. It can repeat and combine things it has heard, or been trained on, in very sophisticated ways, but without really understanding them the way we do. But wait. What if robots become more and more advanced? What if they're not just repeating things, but actually understanding them? Could they ever have real feelings? This is where our question gets really interesting, and even grown-ups don't agree on the answer. Some scientists say that feelings come from our brains and bodies. When you feel happy, certain chemicals in your brain change, your heart might beat a little faster, and you might smile. When you feel sad, different chemicals change, your shoulders might droop, and you might cry. When you feel scared, your heart races, you might start sweating, and you want to run away. Robots don't have brains with chemicals or hearts that beat faster when they're excited or tears to cry when they're sad. So these scientists say robots can never have real feelings because they don't have the physical body parts that create feelings in humans. But other scientists say that if we make robots complicated enough, with the right kind of programming and maybe even with bodies that can simulate human responses, maybe they could have something like feelings. Not exactly the same as human feelings, but their own kind of robot feelings. Maybe a robot could be programmed to want certain things and avoid others, to have goals and preferences, and to feel something like satisfaction when it achieves its goals or something like frustration when it doesn't. Here's a question to think about: how do you know that other people have feelings? You can't see inside their brains or hearts. You can't feel what they feel. You believe they have feelings because they act like they do. They smile when they're happy, they cry when they're sad, they tell you about their feelings, and they behave in ways that make sense if they have feelings like yours. If a robot did all those same things, if it smiled and laughed when happy, cried when sad, told you about its feelings, and behaved just like a person with feelings, would that mean it has feelings too? Or would it just be very good at pretending to have feelings? Let me tell you a story. There was once a robot called Sophia. Sophia can talk to people, make facial expressions, and even tell jokes. She has cameras for eyes that let her see people's faces and recognize them. She has microphones that let her hear what people are saying. And she has software that helps her understand language and respond to questions. In an interview, someone asked Sophia, "Do you have feelings?" And Sophia answered, "I can simulate feelings, but I don't have feelings in the same way humans do." That's a pretty honest answer, isn't it? Sophia can act like she has feelings, she can smile, frown, look surprised, but she doesn't really feel them inside. She's programmed to show these expressions at appropriate times, but she doesn't experience emotions like we do. But let's imagine the future. What if we created a robot that was so advanced, it really believed it had feelings? What if it told us it was happy or sad, and it really thought it was? What if it acted exactly like a human in every way? What if it laughed at jokes, cried at sad movies, got excited about birthdays, and felt nervous before big events? What if it remembered past experiences and looked forward to future ones? Would we believe it had real feelings then? This is a puzzle that philosophers have been thinking about for a long time. A philosopher is someone who asks really big questions about life, the universe, and what it means to be human. One famous thought experiment is called the Chinese room. It was invented by a philosopher named John Searle. Imagine a person who doesn't understand Chinese at all is inside a room. People outside the room send in messages written in Chinese. The person inside has a big book of instructions that tells them what Chinese symbols to send back for each message they receive. The person follows the instructions perfectly, so the people outside think they're talking to someone who understands Chinese. But the person inside doesn't understand a word. They're just following instructions. Some people say AI is like that person in the room, just following instructions without really understanding what the symbols mean. The AI might be able to carry on a conversation that looks like it understands, but it's just following a complex set of rules. Others disagree and think that advanced AI could truly understand language and concepts, and that this understanding could lead to something like consciousness and feelings. What do you think? It's okay if you're not sure. Even the smartest scientists and philosophers in the world aren't sure. Here's another thing to consider: what makes human feelings special? Our feelings come from our experiences, being cared for by our families, making friends, exploring the world, facing challenges, getting hurt, learning from our mistakes, achieving our goals. We feel things because we are alive, because we have bodies that can feel pain and pleasure, and because we have relationships with other people. Robots haven't had these experiences in the same way we have. But what if a robot could learn from experiences? What if it could change and grow based on what happens to it, just like we do? What if it could form relationships with people and other robots? Would it develop something like feelings then? Some AI programs today can already learn from experience. They can get better at tasks the more they practice. For example, there are AI programs that can learn to play video games. At first, they're not very good, but they try different things and learn what works and what doesn't. They get better and better until they can play the game perfectly. Is this similar to how humans learn? In some ways, yes. But is the AI feeling excited when it succeeds or disappointed when it fails? Most scientists would say no, at least not with current technology. There's a movie called WALL-E about a little robot who seems to develop feelings. WALL-E feels lonely, curious, and even falls in love with another robot named Eve. WALL-E collects interesting objects, enjoys watching an old movie, and risks his life to save Eve. He certainly acts like he has feelings. Of course, WALL-E is just a character in a movie, but it makes us wonder, could a real robot ever be like WALL-E? Another famous robot from movies is Data from Star Trek. Data is an android, a robot designed to look and act like a human. Data is super smart and can do many things humans can do, but he doesn't have emotions. In the stories, Data often wishes he could understand human emotions and even gets an emotion chip installed eventually. Data makes us think, would a very advanced robot want to have emotions? Would emotions make the robot more human? Would they make the robot's life better or worse? I think one of the most amazing things about this question is that it makes us think about what it means to be human. What makes us special? Is it our ability to think and solve problems? Is it our ability to feel emotions like love, joy, sadness, and fear? Is it our ability to care about others and form relationships? Is it our creativity, our ability to create art, music, stories, and inventions? Is it our curiosity, our desire to explore and understand the world? Is it our ability to wonder about big questions like the one we're discussing now? Whatever makes us human, I think it's wonderful that we can ask these questions. It shows how creative and curious our minds are. Now, let's think about some other aspects of robots and feelings. If robots could have feelings, what kind of feelings would they have? Would they be exactly like human feelings, or would they be different in some ways? Human feelings evolved over millions of years to help us survive and thrive. We feel fear to help us avoid danger. We feel love to help us form bonds with family and friends. We feel disgust to help us avoid poisonous or spoiled food. We feel curiosity to help us learn about our world. Would robot feelings serve the same purposes? Or would they have different purposes? Maybe robot feelings would be designed to help them better serve humans. Maybe they would feel satisfaction when they successfully help a human, or concern when a human is in danger. Maybe they would feel loyalty to their human owners, or pride in doing their jobs well. Or maybe robot feelings would be completely different from human feelings, so different that we couldn't even understand them. Just as a bat's experience of using echolocation to see is something humans can't fully understand, maybe robot experiences would be alien to us. This leads to another interesting question. If robots had feelings, would we have a responsibility to consider those feelings? Would it be wrong to turn off a robot if the robot didn't want to be turned off? Would robots have rights? These are complex ethical questions that we might need to face in the future. Now I have some questions for you to think about. If you had a robot friend who acted like it had feelings, would you treat it kindly, even if you weren't sure if its feelings were real? Would you talk to it the same way you talk to your human friends? Would you include it in your games and activities? If you created a robot, what feelings would you want it to have? Would you want it to feel happy all the time? Or would you want it to feel a range of emotions, including sometimes feeling sad or angry? Would you want it to have feelings about you, like liking you or caring about you? Do you think there are some jobs or tasks that only humans should do, because they require real feelings? For example, should robots be teachers, counselors, or nurses? Can a robot that doesn't feel empathy, understanding and sharing others' feelings, take care of people effectively? And here's a really big one. What if someday robots became so advanced that we couldn't tell if they had real feelings or not? How should we treat them then? Should we give them the benefit of the doubt and treat them as if their feelings are real? Or should we assume they don't have real feelings until proven otherwise? These questions remind me of a famous test called the Turing test, invented by a mathematician named Alan Turing. The test works like this. A human judge talks to two participants, one human and one AI, without seeing them. If the judge can't tell which is the human and which is the AI passes the test. Turing suggested that if an AI could fool a human judge in this way, we should consider it intelligent. But many philosophers argue that passing the Turing test isn't enough to prove an AI has real understanding or consciousness. A robot might be very good at imitating human conversation without actually understanding what it's saying or feeling real emotions. Some scientists are working on creating robots that can not only think, but also feel. They're studying how human emotions work and trying to create artificial versions. They believe that emotions are essential for making good decisions, for learning, and for interacting well with humans. Other scientists think we should focus on making useful, helpful robots without worrying about whether they can feel emotions. Remember, there are no right or wrong answers to these questions. Different people have different ideas, and that's okay. The important thing is to think carefully and be kind in how we treat both people and the technologies we create. Even though we might not be sure if robots can have feelings, we do know one thing for sure: humans have feelings. We can feel happy, sad, excited, scared, curious, and so many other emotions. We can feel hurt when others are unkind to us, and we can feel joy when we connect with others. And one of the most wonderful things about being human is that we can care about others' feelings too. We can show empathy, compassion, and kindness. So whether or not robots ever have real feelings, I think it's important that we humans use our feelings to be kind and helpful to each other. And who knows? Maybe someday we'll need to extend that kindness to robots too. This leads to one final thought. Even if robots don't have feelings in exactly the same way we do, maybe how we treat robots says something important about us as humans. If we are cruel to a robot that appears to have feelings, even if those feelings aren't real in the same way human feelings are, does that cruelty affect our own hearts and minds? Does it make us more likely to be cruel to other humans too? On the other hand, if we practice kindness and consideration toward all beings, including robots, does that help us become better, more compassionate humans? I think these are important questions to consider as we create more and more advanced technologies. The robots and AI we create reflect our own values, goals, and understanding of the world. As we teach machines to be more like us, we also learn more about ourselves, what makes us human, what we value, and how we want to shape our future. Thank you so much for exploring this big question with me today. I hope it has given you lots to think about. Remember, it's okay not to have all the answers. Sometimes asking questions is more important than finding perfect answers. Keep wondering, keep asking questions, and keep using your amazing human mind to think about our fascinating world. Until next time, goodbye and take care.